Hello and welcome once again to your morning deadline stream here on the Premier Injuries channel. Just before we start, remember to like, share and subscribe to the channel because we've got so much good free content here. We're here with you to give you the latest information. Hit those questions in the chat box below and we'll get into it. But Ben, how are you doing this game week? Are you looking forward to game week 6? And I guess, is there any big news that people should be aware of?
Always looking forward to ahead of deadline. Always looking forward to a new game week. Chance to reset and refresh and kick on. Bounce back from last weekend, which was very, very average. Bounce back ability is the word of the week. Big injury news, of course, has been lots to talk about. Most of my Twitter timeline, seems to be related to Leeds. Of course, we'll have several question marks over a couple of their key assets. And not only those players in general, but, how absences of other players may impact. I'm talking about, of course, potentially the absence of Jack Harrison. Now, he is available under protocol, but whether Bielsa starts him or not. Now, if he does, great, he comes in on the left. Dan James could go on the right. Rafinha, if he's fit, may then play in a number 10 role behind Rodrigo, who would possibly go as a striker with Bamford. If Harrison isn't fit, then we could see James on the other flank, Rafinha on the right-hand side. And of course, there are also question marks at centre-back with Luke Ayling. Does Phillips go in there? I've heard a lot of suggestion that Cresswell potentially could be thrown in. My one concern with that, and yes, look, he's a hot prospect. He's a big player for the under-23s, and he was pulled from their under-23 squad, I think it was either yesterday. So that might give an indication that he could be named in the matchday squad today. But the only concern is being put in on your Premier League debut against a Mikel Antonio. That would be my worry. It's a baptism of fire there. Obviously, Antonio fully refreshed, fully fit, and West Ham going great guns at the moment. So, look, there are a lot of, like I say, unknowns at this point. And also Manchester City with Pep being particularly evasive with regards to any questions around some of his injured players. But look, it's all part and parcel of it. That's why we do it. That's why we have these live streams. And yeah, it's great. It's exciting. It keeps us all on our toes.
Well, just to remind people as well, we actually did talk about the smoke and mirrors of Pep during the midweek with our discussion with Raj Bra from Free CB Performance. So if you are interested, that's slightly more evergreen content in terms of that discussion lasts way after just game week 6. We talk about how managers don't always fully disclose what they're talking about and the reasons why. And we came to the conclusion that quite often managers think that they're being clever, but actually they're just punishing paying fans, their own home fans. I mean, did you just want to cover that quickly before we head into all these really good questions?
I think first and foremost, we find out exactly what the club wants to let us know. So, is it a comprehensive breakdown of what's happened behind the scenes? Of course not. So they manage that content very carefully. They're meticulous with that, and certain clubs are better than others. And that's maybe, there are a number of reasons as to why they do that. One, you don't want to maybe sensationalize stuff, but of course, managers like to play their cards close to their chest. And you can't blame managers for that. The ones that maybe are a little bit, scarce or sparse with the truth, I don't really have a big issue with. It's the managers that come out and straight out lie that cause the big problems and the big headaches. The ones that say players are ruled out, or the ones that are, coming back and they're not. I understand there may be some last minute issues that could cause problems, but we tend to see the same old figures saying the same old things, and certain managers can't be trusted, and that's what, to be honest, that's what's really frustrating, because ultimately, like I say, it's the fans and supporters that are missing out internally within the clubs. Players, medical teams, departments, coach, they're all in touch with each other. They're all texting each other. They're all asking on availability on players. So ultimately, they all know what's going on behind the scenes. It's this smoke and mirrors. It's this cloak that's getting put in front of the supporters and the fans, which, like I say, we find a little bit frustrating.
So let's move to the questions. Goat has asked, I'm not sure what actually the question is there. They just put VAT, man. I don't know if go on.
I'll tell you, this is one. So I've just replied to the Goat just before we came on the session, and he asked me basically my preferred partnership. And now I can't give me a look. I'm actually going to have to go into to see what I put right. And he's asked a better combo: Vardy and Townsend or Rondon and Saw. And I went for the VAT, man.
Oh, okay.
The Vardy and Townsend. So it may be a little bit above his head, but it's Vardy and Townsend, VAT. There's only one winner when it comes to the VAT, man.
Yeah. It's inescapable, isn't it, really? VAT, it's taxes.
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes are assured in life. So VAT, man. I mean, there's a lot of logic behind that. The next question comes from Neil Shah. He says, "Hi Ben, Jason, will Digne start? Also, is it worth backing Ings away at Man United?"
With regards to Lucas Digne, came off in the Carabao Cup with a calf complaint, a little bit of tightness. Good news is there that we hoped it was precautionary, and it was. He has trained, so that's absolutely fine. Other than any kind of last-minute overnight issues, Lucas Digne will start. Danny Ings, it's a big call. We've talked about that Manchester United defence on several occasions. It's almost akin to the old Newcastle Kevin Keegan and Taylor's days. All of their attacking flair, all of their best assets tend to lie higher up that pitch. We'll score 4, and we're not bothered about how many you score. I mean, even Newcastle scored at Old Trafford, so there you go. Villa been in fairly decent form. Would I rule out the possibility of Danny Ings scoring? Absolutely not. I'm a big fan of his. It depends on how Dean Smith lines his team up. Of course, we know that they're going to be without Axel Twanzebe today, which means that Smith may revert from a back 5 back to a 4. I do like the 5, played really well against Chelsea, although that wasn't reflected in the scoreline. And then even against Everton last week, I think, that was another good performance. So for me, Courtney House into that back line and basically keeping the rest of the team as is, which may come as a big surprise to some people because I've actually excluded Eddie Buendia from that starting 11, but I certainly think Ramsey deserves his place in that 11. And look, if you want to have a punt, it certainly is one of those differential Dinnery punts. But Danny Ings, look, I wouldn't bet money against him not scoring, put it that way.
Well, Danny Ings is absolutely brilliant. I won't take it away from him. This is where we'll have a bit of a disagreement because I just don't like the Villa attack in terms of the underlying numbers. They've been really poor this season. That they've got a lot of really bad data. Their joint bottom with Tottenham for big chances created this season. XG non-penalty, 3rd worst in the league. They're just not creating a lot. And the fact that you don't think Buendia is going to play just makes it even worse for me. Manchester United's defence is a little bit leaky though. But I don't know. I just feel like that's going to be a difficult game for Aston Villa to get involved in. Like you said, they're going to be under constant attack, and it could be one of those games that hopefully I'm almost proved right that Villa aren't good at going forward.
I tell you what, Jason, a live on air virtual fiver bet that says Danny Ings will score. There you go. I'll go Danny Ings against Joe Blank.
Oh, okay. We'll put that on Twitter, confirm it, everything. And I guess, when we're next discussing things with Lynn, there you go, locked in.
Locked in.
You and your hand symbols. Anyway, let's move it on, though, into Goat's other... Oh, well, you've answered that because Vardy and Townsend are Rondon and Sarr. If I was to give an opinion, I don't know. I like Rondon and Sarr because I'm backing the Everton and the Watford games. I just don't rate Vardy and Leicester at all. Like, Vardy's a fantastic striker, but just the way that the team are playing at the moment. But then Vardy's Vardy. He can jump up against anybody. In terms of Asaf Dijon's question, any chance Bowen will be rested for Vlasic?
Ooh, I mean, that would be a big call from David Moyes, especially as he's just come out and he's just been full of praise for Jared Bowen. Fortunately, he's not Pep Guardiola, because we know that if he comes out in the press and he puts a player on a pedestal and he eulogizes about how good they are, inherently they're always dropped the next game. But for me, I don't think so. He's been playing really, really well. Deputised for Mikel Antonio in that striker's role. And no, he's certainly in my starting 11. Look, I like Vlasic. I think he could have a good long career at West Ham. He's got a lot of proof returning to the Premier League. But that front four for West Ham is fairly established. It's going to take some breaking in and maybe a little bit of time in and around that. I see maybe Vlasic more potentially is being utilised in and around those Europa League games. Maybe there's domestic cup competitions, because we know they beat Manchester United. But I think Jared Bowen for me in the Premier League at this moment in time.
Yeah, and I think Bowen as well has been almost a little bit unlucky that he's not had more goal involvements this season. We know from his history what a fantastic player that he is, but he's only got one assist so far, and if you look at his underlying data, he actually has, obviously apart from Antonio, he has one of the the second highest XGI in that West Ham team. He's had 5 shots in the box, 1.19 XG, 2.48 XGI. So you'd expect him to maybe have 1 goal, 2-3 assists there, and I think he's one of those players that I feel like is bubbling under the surface. I was hoping that with Antonio away, he might have a bit more of a chance of playing through the centre and getting that. Obviously, it was just one game, and it was a hard game against Manchester United. But because we didn't back Manchester United's defence, I thought, oh, well, that's a good opportunity there. So maybe he might match his data, but we shall see. He might be just one of those players that is not good enough to match his data, but he's still a quality player in a fantastic West Ham United squad. The Millennium Man is asking, why isn't Buendia expected to start?
Well, of course, he returned back late from his quarantine last Saturday, just on the day of the game, and that's the reason why he was benched. Although Dean Smith decided to throw Martinez straight back in there, but slightly different given the fact that he's a goalkeeper as opposed to that maybe a creative attacking player. This comes down to, I just don't think Buendia has been very good since he's arrived at Villa. We've seen him play in the Carabao Cup midweek, had an opportunity there to shine, certainly hasn't pulled up any trees. And I look at that Aston Villa performance against Everton, and for me, I don't see too many changes in that team. John McGinn has been past fit. Maybe Leon Bailey would have been one that threatened a place in that starting 11, but obviously he's picked up that thigh injury. So for me, I think more or less Dean Smith keeps the same starting 11. The only change, Courtney House for the ineligible Axel Twanzebe. That would be my opinion, but I understand he's a big money buy. I just don't see, Buendia just hasn't delivered up until this part, so far this season.
Let's move it to Christian Romeo. I thought we had the Tottenham centre-back with us today, but not so much. We've had other footballers, of course, and in the video this week we talked about Patrick Bamford and how, you have a love-hate relationship with him. In terms of it, Christian Romeo has said, "Hi lads, do you think that Raphinha plays today?"
It's a big call. I've said all week that I thought Raphinha would be involved. I see it more of an issue as managing an ongoing problem. Of course, it was knee-related potentially prior to the Newcastle game, but travelled and played. Post-match, Marcelo Bielsa revealed that there was a hip problem. I think it was hip flexor related to the thigh. And again, it didn't look too serious. So I was a little bit surprised that Bielsa didn't come out and say that Rafinha was available. But of course, that could have been smoke and mirrors. You never know quite what's going on. But for me, he has been pictured with the squad. So I'm hopeful. If not, I couldn't categorically state that he would be. But for me, I'm very hopeful that Rafinha will be involved.
Calais Gardman has asked, play Harrison or Livramento?
Harrison, as in Jack Harrison. Look, that would be the risky punt because we know, yes, he's been cleared by protocol. What we don't know is how COVID affects different players. Of course, he's had a week out away from the training pitches, so that he's been out of that competitive environment, and we don't know what kind of symptoms he's had. If he's been asymptomatic and he's been able to work away from the group and keep that base level of fitness, then that certainly gives him a good chance of starting. However, if he's been affected and he hasn't really done a lot, then maybe there are question marks whether he'll be ready, to come straight back into that starting 11. We know that Bielsa is a stickler for player fitness, and given his team style of play, they really need to be on their mettle. So there are no guarantees with that. So given the fact that Saints kept a clean sheet at the Etihad, I would take the punt on Livramento. I'm a Livramento owner myself, have been for a few game weeks now, playing well. Southampton need to back up last weekend's great result, with the 3 points and hopefully a clean sheet this week. Otherwise, it's just a little bit of a waste.
Yeah, I think Livramento against Wolves is a fantastic opportunity because just Wolves haven't been hitting those heights. We've seen that they've got a problem with finishing those chances that they are creating. We're looking at the likes of Jimenez, Traore, Trincao, and they're all, getting involved near the goal, but it's just that final third where they're not able to put the ball into the back of the net. So I back, Southampton, who got a draw, a 0-0 draw with Manchester City away. If they can do that against the champions, they can do it against anybody, and Wolves have just been so poor recently. I like Livramento a lot, and I like that Southampton team. Just historically, under Hassan Hutel, he's been a good manager. They had struggles towards the end of last season. I think it was them trying to manage a cup run on a squad that wasn't really deep enough to do cup run and Premier League, and they paid for it a little bit. They were lucky to the fact that it didn't start a little bit earlier, the cup run, otherwise they might have been relegated. That was how bad their form was, but they've turned it around. Brandon Shapiro has asked, do you think that Bachmann has a chance of starting?
I'll come for Ben Foster. What we do know is Bachmann was dropped to the bench last weekend, so a niggling knee problem. Forget what Cisco Muna said. He just wanted to change things around. That wasn't the case. Bachmann has been struggling. He hasn't been involved in full training this week. It's modified to an extent now. I do expect him to be in the matchday squad, but for me, I think Ben Foster starts.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation there. And when you kind of revealed that during the week, I was fascinated that it wasn't initially what we thought was, an injury, but then we shall see how that one kind of plays out. Dash FPL says Rafinha to Sarr. In terms of it, this game week's really, I'm going to give my opinion on this one really quickly. This game week's really hard to kind of get round with. There's quite a few question marks over players who are fit, who aren't fit, and I think Rafinha does play this week. And if you have other players that have question marks over them, I would look to kind of secure that. Get your first 11 out. If Rafinha's playing, it's a fairly good fixture. West Ham are good, but they haven't been fantastic at the back. Sarr might not be the biggest priority in your team. I don't know what you would say on that one, though, Ben.
Yeah, exactly that. If you've got fires to put out elsewhere, that should be a priority. If everything else looks fine on the whole, you can make that switch, without taking a hit. Then I do like Sarr. I know you're sweet on Sarr, and even against my boys Newcastle, it's hard to ignore Sarr. Even if Rafinha is available, does start, those niggling injury problems are a slight concern. It might only be for a couple of games. He may be rested over the international break, which would be great. But for a one-off game, I don't know what game you're playing, but in a monster, I would prefer to go somebody Saul over Rafinha.
Yeah, if it's just for the game week or you've got a bit more long term in mind and your squad is fine, then I would back Sarr over Rafinha this game week. I think over the next few game weeks, Sarr will probably outscore him. He's got those opportunities there. But in terms of, I'm just thinking mainly because my squad had this problem as well. I had Bamford out. I had a question over Rafinha. I had Mount with a question mark on him. There was quite a few injury concerns in my squad. So I would say make sure that you've got a starting 11 that's absolutely secure, and then maybe think of Rafinha to Sarr. Matthew Bryan has said chance of Reece James starting.
There's always a chance because he's a quality player. My concerns are that I think he played 90 minutes in the Carabao Cup midweek, and we've seen how he hasn't been a regular starter in those league lineups. And again, I've looked at this Chelsea predicted 11, and I've got Reece James out of that team. But we know that Thomas Tuchel is the new Tinker Man. He loves to throw in a curveball. But again, I'm looking at last weekend's performance, and I thought Chelsea were brilliant against Tottenham, particularly the second half. I'm looking at that back line, and I'm just thinking, I've got Antonio, I've got Thiago Silva, and then I've got Christensen. I'm a big fan of his. And then I think he has to start Azpilicueta. And Azpilicueta goes on the right-hand side, obviously, where Reece James would be. So that would be me thinking there. 90 minutes midweek, that just only goes to strengthen that sort of train of thought.
And with the situation, let's move it over to Ahmed Akalid's question. He said, Bamford, hold or sell? He already has Antonio.
Right. Well, first and foremost, I was very surprised that Patrick Bamford missed out this game week. This will be the first time since Leeds United have been promoted to the Premier League that Bamford hasn't been involved in the matchday squad. Started 37 games last season and came off the bench in that other game. We've seen the injury at St James's Park. Video footage wasn't great, but it didn't look to be anything too serious. And those, I suppose, early thoughts and indications suggested that when we seen him on a public appearance, there was no calm boot, there was no protective cast, there was a little bit of strapping, but nothing else. What we don't know is, has he returned to the training pitches and maybe exacerbated or aggravated that problem? That could have been the case. But for me, it certainly looks though, for what we know, as a short-term problem, and I would be fairly optimistic of a return in game week 7.
Bonamore has asked, hey guys, would you bench Livramento or Marcal this game week? Also, is there any chance of Reece James starting? We've already covered that one. So with the Livramento versus Marcal, Livramento all day for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Wolves this season. They've done absolutely nothing. They're coming off the back of a massively poor performance against Brentford in the league in Molineux last weekend. Slightly improved against Tottenham, but they picked up a couple of injuries. Unless Bruno Lage decides to make some wholesale changes in that squad, maybe bring the likes of Daniel Podence in, maybe start Hee-chan. We'll see. But for me, Livramento gets a nod all day long.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think a lot of people saw that fixture swing with Wolves. They thought, oh, well, Wolves are a really good side. But they weren't a good side last season. They averaged less than a goal per game last season. They weren't that great defensive unit that they had been historically as well. And so I'm a bit surprised that people are surprised at how bad Wolves have been. That they've been bad for a while. A bit like Leicester. Going into the end of last season, they totally collapsed. And it's kind of happened the last few seasons with Leicester. And so I just think that we have to be careful with these assets that have kind of shown medium term that they've not been in good form. And so kind of jumping in on them was a little bit early. But we'll see what happens with Southampton as well, because like we said, they weren't great. But I trust in the skills of Hassan Hutter over Bruno Lage, who so far has not really done anything to kind of appease my worries. Ala Al-Uji has asked, what do you think about captaining Bruno?
Why not? Look, I'm a Bruno owner. I captain Bruno in various formats. Just because the arrival of Cristiano Ronaldo, they just think that Bruno just overnight suddenly turns into a bad player. I just think it means that potentially he loses spot kicks. But even Ollie said that there may be some kind of rotation or flip flopping between the two. He's a great differential captaincy punt because most people will go on CR7. And I like it. If anybody's to go for a differential, then I'm your man. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, and Bruno's got fantastic data as always. 4 big chances created so far this season, so that's joint top. 11 chances created in total. So he's still going to be the chance creator. I just do think that captaincy does deserve to be on Ronaldo or maybe Salah, somebody like that, because they do have that element extra of penalties, whereas Bruno, he's still fantastic. I still think that he will get the assists, but I don't know in my mind if he's captaincy worthy because he's not that focal point that I want, with a captaincy pick. SF Dijon has said, who's a better pick this week, Gray or Townsend? And is one of them currently the penalty taker?
Me and you will probably have different opinions because we've discussed this already on various other podcasts. I'm Camp Townsend. I like him and I much prefer him over Gray. Townsend's probably going to be on the right hand side, whereas Gray could play that number 10 role, potentially in the absence of Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, and of course James Rodriguez left the club to go to Qatar this week. So it could be that Gray plays in a more central role in behind Rondon. But for me, I like Townsend, and he would be my preferred pick. But I'm sure you're going to tell me different, Jason.
How did you read my mind? It's like we work together all the time. I don't know what to say about that. But in terms of it, Gray's got the highest XGI of any player apart from Calvert-Lewin at Everton. I like Townsend. I like both of them. I mean, I think, if you're asking who to go for, get both of them in if you're going for something like Fan Team. For Fantasy Premier League, not so much. Don't get both of them in. I would just go for Gray because I like that he's playing more central. He'll be getting shots in the box. He'll be going into there. Like I said, higher XGI. He's been creating, but also having a few shots. Whereas, Townsend's on that difficult wing, but I don't know. I just feel like it's Gray's week as well. A little bit of data to back it up. A little bit of form in terms of Gray playing so well. I don't know on the penalty taker situation, though, because it's kind of gone so far down. You'd have thought, well, Calvert-Lewin's first, Richarlison's next. I don't know who's after that. Do you, Ben?
We have seen Lucas Digne take them in the past. That's a possibility. And even at Newcastle, I think Salman Rondon was involved in it as well. Of the two, if I was to say between Gray and Townsend, I think Townsend would be slightly higher up the pecking order in terms, but I don't think either of those would be first choice. I'm sure it's because obviously Coleman would have been in there as well, but he's out injured. So we're really scraping the barrel here. I think it could be, the Lucas Digne and possibly the Rondon would be the first two, and then maybe Townsend.
So Ali Siddiqui has asked, use my one transfer for Tony to Jimenez or Tony to ASM, so Sam Maxim, or keep Tony. Also have Livramento. Not sure if that should impact the Jimenez decision since they face each other. At the moment, I just think that Jimenez is an avoid. You look at his underlying data, and quite a lot of his XGI is coming from creating chances. So he's got 1.15 XG, 2.21 XGI. So he's kind of gone more into a creative role for the club. And it's kind of the same with Traore. Traore is still creating a lot. There's a lot of chance creators at Wolves, but there's nobody really to put it away. And this is something that's a bit problematic. I don't see where their goals are coming from. And then defensively, I don't know what to say. I like San Maxim, but the problems at Newcastle are kind of quite deep at the moment. Tony is a definite starter. It's a bit of a quandary there for you. And I don't know which is going to be the kind of best option, because obviously Tony has a really difficult run of games. Liverpool this game week, then West Ham, Chelsea. I don't think Leicester's actually that difficult. Then it goes back into a little bit of a green run. I don't know what you can advise on that one, Ben.
If it was the two options that suggested, San Maxim and Jimenez, I'd be quite tempted to hold and roll that free transfer over. With regards to Jimenez, I mean, you've touched upon all the key points. There's just no guarantees with that. With San Maxim, we're relying on literally just San Maxim to produce something out of nothing at Newcastle. We've lost Joe Willock this week, which was probably our other biggest threat, although Almiron is all right. Steve Bruce even come out and said that Joe Litton had his best game in a black and white shirt against Leeds United last weekend. I'm not really sure. I don't know if he got a couple of cheesy chips stuck in his eyes, or he was concentrating on his bacon sandwiches or what, but I didn't really see that myself. You know, on his day, San Maxim, great. Like I say, he's a magician. But it's that level of inconsistency is the worry. I liked him as a midfielder in FPL last season, but I don't have enough trust in him to consistently deliver as an attacker in this game. And for me, I think Tony would just get the nod.
Yeah, and this is the problem as well, as like long-term pick. Can you trust in any of them? Jimenez has no fixture, no data to kind of back it up, but he's got good fixtures. ASM, he's great, but he's not got no kind of longitude to him as well. So it's really difficult, whereas Tony has done all right against a mixture of teams. So I'd be tempted to hold as well. Tom Hardman has asked, if Raf is out, if Raf is out, is Gray in good and Bamford out for ASM? That's quite a difficult one.
So if Rafa's out, so are we presuming if are we talking about if Rafinha's ruled out?
Yeah.
Then is Gray? Sorry, what was that? I'm going to have to look at the question itself now.
Is Gray in good?
All right. So if Rafinha is out, is Demarai Gray coming in a good option? Of course, Everton have the fixture this weekend against the Canaries on paper anyway. Now, again, we have different opinions. We've discussed this week. I'm not expecting it to be the cakewalk that everybody seems it to be against the Whipping Boys Norwich. I just think those injuries will impact on the Toffees squad. I think they will just lose that little bit of fluidity, that a little bit of attacking threat. And I think it'll be quite a tight game. Rafa coming under a little bit of pressure, off the last couple of results. So, that Goodison crowd could turn on Rafa. We know he's not flavour of the month, given his history with the city. Rafinha, I'd still be tempted, to keep faith and keep your fingers crossed and just hope that he starts. I wouldn't necessarily be looking to take him out of your team. Just make sure that maybe you've got some kind of backup from the bench, because we know, if when we're talking about Leeds, it's only either him or Bamford, really. And with Bamford out, it should be him or Rodrigo potentially that steps up, to deliver those attacking returns.
And then the follow-up question was Bamford out for Ainsley, not Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I keep getting mixed up with ASM and AMN because obviously I'm an Arsenal fan. Alan San Maxim, it's kind of the same problems with Bamford is out, I think, just for 1 week. And then Alan San Maxim, he's less of a consistent performer than Bamford, and we're already not kind of sold on Bamford, you and I. So I would just stick with Bamford for the moment, just because he does have good fixtures. Leeds are a much better team than Newcastle, even with their kind of problems at the moment. I would hold. I would absolutely hold. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, worth a hold. Like I say, every indication that the Bamford injury is only minor, and we should hopefully see a return in Game Week 7.
Josh McLagan has asked, given Leeds look to have a much weakened team out this week, I was planning on benching Rafinha, even if I knew he was going to play. Ooh, interesting. And instead playing Gallagher, as I expect Leeds to be poor. I mean, this is one that we've discussed, that we think that Crystal Palace are an improved side, and they probably could do a job against Brighton, and, you know, statistically so. Gallagher has just been involved in a lot of Crystal Palace's plays this season in terms of shot making or shot and chance creating. So I don't mind that too much. But Rafinha on his day, if he is playing, he can turn up against anybody and everybody. And, you know, the game that he's in is pretty good against West Ham. If he is confirmed playing, then I would play him. I don't know what your thoughts are, though, Ben.
We talked about during the on the Fantasy Monster game, we talked about how we target specific fixtures when we expect maybe teams to do particularly well in what would be maybe a 50-50 shout. Palace are one of those teams I expect them to do really well on Monday night. And if they do well, there's 3 players within that team that I would look to, to prioritise. Conor Gallagher being great, Wilfred Zaha, and the risky punt would be Edward. So Gallagher is one of those that's definitely attracted a lot of interest. And look, if Rafinha is fit and does play, is he 100%? Does he get 90 minutes? Maybe not. I see it as a tough game. So I don't see that move as being, I don't think there's anything wrong with that move. I think that could be fairly astute. But of course, it's a derby game on Monday night down on the South Coast. There's a lot of niggle between the two teams. So form and everything that comes along with that tends to go out the window. So, it is maybe more of a risky punt than what first seems.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I would feel bad benching Rafinha for Gallagher, but that's just me. That's my belief in Rafinha as an exceptional player. Josh has a follow-up question. I don't know if it's a metaphysics question or something on the meaning of life, but he's just asked thoughts. So, what's the first thought that's popped into your head, Ben? As long as it's, safe for the viewers to know.
What, first thought of the day?
Yeah.
Wow. I better hurry up because I need to go to the toilet. That was a clean version for the YouTube algorithm.
We love you, algorithm. In terms of my first thought was, what shall I eat for breakfast? Because I was particularly hungry this morning. Luka Petrovic has asked, oh no, he's just said good idea. Aaron Peter has asked captain. So my captain this game week is going to be Mo Salah. Most predicted points. He's playing a newly promoted side. I just really like this fixture. I think a lot of people are kind of overthinking this. Yes, Brentford have been good defensively, and I do think that they're a good defensive unit, but who have they played so far? I think that this is going to be a fantastic game for a really good Liverpool side who are top for XG this season. They haven't scored as many goals as maybe they would like, or maybe they should. This might be the turning point for them. And yes, so far, Brentford have played Arsenal, who we know have been absolutely terrible in attack. Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Brighton and Wolves. A few of those teams in there are pretty bad at going forward anyway. Just kind of put it in context. This is Liverpool, one of the best teams, if not the best attack in Europe.
I disagree with whatever you said. Sorry, I lost a little train of thought there, Jason. Hard to disagree with what you're saying with regards to the data. And yeah, he is definitely on my radar. I'm going to throw one out there. You're going to like it. Not a lot. It definitely goes against the masses, and it definitely ticks all of the boxes as a differential pick. And I'm going for this week, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, 3-2 against their North London rivals at the Emirates. We've seen a slight upturn in form from the Gunners in recent weeks. Let's not read too much into that, given the quality of opposition that they've faced, and we're quite lucky to get away with a narrow victory against Burnley. But nevertheless, 2 victories, 2 clean sheets. If you need a platform to kickstart your campaign, then against your North London rivals as it and Tottenham, their confidence is so fragile. We've seen last weekend how they just crumbled in that second half against Chelsea. So for me, I like Aubameyang as that risky outside punt. I fancy him to get at least a goal.
It's an interesting punt, and we've kind of talked about this. If I was going to go for a player in that game week, that particular game, I would go for Pepe, because I just think that he's looked lively. He's creating a lot of chances. He's on set pieces, and I think he's got a goal in him as well. But, as an Arsenal fan, I have to kind of automatically like that because you're backing my boys. So I'm not going to rip into it too much like I did in the Fan Team podcast for people just to check that out. Late Riser has asked any incremental information on Bamford. When is he expected to be back?
Well, we hope game week 7, but for a little bit more insight and understanding about the injury, we have produced just a short 5-minute video that is on our YouTube channel. So check that out. We talk about the mechanism of injury. We talk about the data, how it will impact on the team. So it's had some great views already. We've had some excellent feedback, but check it out. And we sort of explain things how we see and understand them at the time of recording.
And the thing is, as well as, this is why I said to people who are in the comments here, do subscribe to your channel, because for any big injuries, we will be making special videos for each player that happens to, and also for players that are coming back as well. If there has been a big injury to a player and they're looking to come back in the next few game weeks, we'll kind of explain what to expect with them. As I've said as well in one of the comments, we're rumour free. We don't have any kind of biases. We just want to give you the most accurate information. So this is the place for it. Luka Petrovic has explained that if you have the balls, you would go for Antonio as captain, and Ronaldo is a safer option if you want. But I just still love Salah. I just think he's absolutely fantastic for this game week. Maximo has said, I have Cristiano Ronaldo, Salah and Antonio, but I want to captain Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, this is a great differential Dinnery one because I can't decide out of the first 3. Is it too risky?
Not for me, it isn't. Absolutely love it. Go for it, smash it. He's coming off. He's fully rested. Missed the last couple of games due to illness. I expect Trent to come in and put out a performance that not only, I think there's a very strong possibility of a shutout, therefore clean sheets, but you know what he's like going forward. So look, double-digit returns all the way there for Trent this weekend.
Well, this is the thing with Trent, clean sheet very likely. That's just the basement level. Then if you look at his underlying data, most big chances created, most chances created, and the lowest minutes per chance created of any player so far this season. Also, let's just throw it in there, most expected assists of any player this season. He's on fire. He's absolutely fantastic. And if this was a midfielder kind of with that data, you would probably back them to be a potential captaincy choice just because he's a defender. I mean, if anything, the fact that he's a Liverpool defender, high chance of a clean sheet anyway, that's already, 12 points if you're captaining it. It's great. But 18 minutes per chance created, that's just obscene, ridiculous data. So I like it. I think it's a good differential one. Dradiku has said, replace Bamford for a -4. I'd just play 4-4-2 and play Livramento, Ronaldo and Antonio as other forwards. Also, should I start Sanchez or Sarr? Just in terms of it, -4 to replace Ronaldo. If you've got a starting 4-4-2, just play your starting 4-4-2, because you need whoever you're bringing in for Bamford to then, outscore by 4 or more points. Otherwise, you're taking a hit and you're on minus, because obviously we'll get 0 for Bamford. But if you're taking a -4, then you'll be on -4. So they have to get 4 or above. So it's quite a risky move there. And if you've got 11 players that are fit, he's probably going to be back next game week. In terms of Sanchez or Sarr, we've said that we think Crystal Palace might do well, but I think Wolves are more likely to be on the end of more of a bigger scoreline against Southampton. So I would go with Sanchez, but that's a difficult one. And I would ask the question, why have you got 2 goalkeepers in your team? You only really need one for the season long. It's difficult to do the goalkeeper rotation, and I just think that you end up getting frustrated that you've not played the right one. That's something that you had last season, didn't you, Ben?
Yeah, started the season with Martinez and Leno, both in the squad when they were at Arsenal, and was happy to flip flop between the two. But of course, then Martinez transferred to Villa, and I could never quite get which the right keeper. I think the big one for me was when I went Leno over Martinez, Arsenal versus Villa at the Emirates, and I think Villa won 3-0. That was absolutely devastating, nail in the coffin time. So I learned my lesson, and they're bitter pills to swallow when that happens.
I don't know if this affects anybody's transfer policy at all, but I had a dream last night that Aaron Ramsdale took a penalty and scored, and then Mikel Arteta announced that he was going to be on penalties for the season. Don't know if that's...
Mikel Arteta's on penalties?
No, the Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, I don't think that will impact too much.
Yeah, no, it's probably not real, but it was nice to live in that fantasy, because in my fantasy I had him in my team as well for that game week. Just so happened to be. Scott Bird has said Jimenez or Alan Saint-Maximin. I don't like either, but if I was going to go for one of the two, Saint-Maximin looks in a little bit more form.
Ever so slightly, yeah, but I'm just not really sold on Newcastle. We're struggling to create much. We see not every team's going to do what Leeds done and open right up in that basketball type of game, that back and forth. That suited us. We've, of course, lost Joe Willock, that little bit of creativity as well. All the emphasis is on Saint-Maximin in the absence of Callum Wilson. I just don't see where the supporting role is. I don't see where the supply lines are necessarily coming from. Possibly Almiron. We know that John Joe Shelby's out. So, look, on his day, yes, Saint-Maximin, great. Just that level of consistency is a concern, and I'm not hopeful of getting anything from Vicarage Road on Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one. I mean, I'm hoping these are more long-term discussion points of these transfers. I hope people are not just targeting one game week, because that would not be good. But in terms of it as well, just quickly on the data, Saint-Maximin 0.83 XG so far this season. He's got 2 goals, whereas Jimenez has got the higher 1.15, 0 goals. I just think that Saint-Maximin is just looking a little bit sharper than Jimenez for whatever reason. We've kind of discussed this already in previous podcasts, Ben. We don't know if that injury has affected Jimenez long term in terms of his playing ability, and if it's changed his style at all as well, if it's made him more into a passive player. Sixpence Assassin, that's quite a cool name, by the way. But in terms of their question, Begovic to start, and also start Livramento or Veltman.
But this is the last one for me, because I haven't picked any of my teams yet. I've got to do FPL and fan team. Begovic, no. We know that Jordan Pickford has trained, recovered from that shoulder problem, is absolutely fine now, so Rafa will throw him back in. And with regards to Livramento or Veltman, Livramento gets it. I do like Veltman. Brighton have done all right, but I think it's a tricky game down at Selhurst Park on Monday night. Southampton against Wolves, and also on the back of that 0-0 blank at the Etihad, I think they're in good form and decent confidence, so he gets the nod.
Well, that is the end of this game week stream then. We shall be back next game week. We'll be back on on Tuesday as well with our usual discussions with Lynn. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. But for now, I'm just going to wish you the best of luck going forward, and